Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with the brand new Jurassic World Legacy Collection Diplodocus from Mattel. Yes, we've got another brand new sauropod, another of these giant figures that just take up way too much room in all of our collection rooms, but I am still pretty excited to see at least, a Diplodocus from Mattel. That's super cool. If you would have told me years ago that we would one day have a Diplodocus in the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World line, I would have called you a liar, but here we are. So Mattel, as per usual, making pretty much anything and everything they can think of. And you can see the box art is really, really nicely done. We've obviously got a super cool looking Diplodocus here. Very cool color scheme. Generally a just really nice looking sculpt on the figure itself, and of course as far as the appearance of it here in the artwork is gorgeous, as it always is, honestly, with the sauropods. They always have, they just go the extra mile for the artwork on the boxes of the sauropods. As far as what else we have for the box, over here on the side, basically you can just see someone here playing with the figure, and another shot here of the tail kind of curving around. If you take a look at the back, it's kind of the same sort of image, but now it's supposed to be standing up tall, and it's obviously not. If we stand it up tall and move it back, it's going to end up being way too tall, actually, so we'd have to move the camera up higher to really see it. But there you go, you can get a shot there, nice look at the box as far as the vertical version, and you'll basically continue to see the same thing as we move through the rest of the box. So let's just pop this box open and check out our new sauropod. So once you open the box up, here's what you are left with. Numerous different pieces, and that's kind of what I expected, especially considering it is a Diplodocus, which means it's going to have some significant length to it, and obviously to pack that all in one box, we've got quite a few different pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually assemble the tail and assemble the neck, and then we're going to jump to a closer look, and I'm going to review those pieces separate from the rest of the Diplodocus, because I would think actually kind of reviewing it all assembled would be a nightmare. So as per usual, when it comes to the sauropods, I usually review them with the closer look separated, and then of course, put it all together for the ending of the video. So let's go ahead, I'll get these put together and we'll jump to that closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Diplodocus, you can see straight away the head sculpt looks really nice, as does the paintwork and coloration here. I actually really quite like the usage of these lighter tones, sorry, repositioning here, the lighter tones in the face. It almost kind of gives it sort of like that war paint kind of look, but it looks really natural and is a little creative, I would say. But you can see we've got a nice dark brown for the upper part of the head. Then you've got this light tone, kind of like an off-white or almost bordering on like a khaki that kind of leads up and stripes up there toward the eye and toward the top of the head. We can see the ear sculpted out. The eye is also painted with a yellow, and the pupil does look like a black pupil. Kind of looks like a dark brown in some, lights, but I think it is a black pupil. And obviously you can see the skin texture looks quite nice. We've got the nostrils and everything sculpted out right there. You can see, if you take a look at the opposing side of the head again, everything looks really good, and I definitely am a fan of the coloration applied. It looks nice and natural, I would say, for the most part. You do, of course, have an articulated jaw for the Diplodocus, which is really cool. We can see inside the mouth, we've got a nice tongue sculpted in there, nice texturing to the tongue. Then you've got some okay detail on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, but obviously we're not going to see a whole lot in there. Man, my camera doesn't seem to want to focus correctly in here. But we obviously can see the teeth for the Diplodocus. They're painted with kind of like a light yellowish tone. They don't look too bad. They're not really sloppy or anything as far as the paintwork goes, so that's a plus. The jaw opens about that far. Closes really nicely. As you begin to move back into the neck, you do have a nice spot of articulation right here, as you can go left and right and up and down with the head, which is really cool. It can also swivel, so the articulation in that area is pretty darn nicely done. As you begin to move down the neck, you can see the skin texture has that very rough and rugged look to it. I don't know if I would say elephant-like. I would say maybe a little tougher than elephant-like skin. We've got some larger kind of osteoderms poking up here and there, as well as the classic line of ridges here moving along the back of the neck of the Diplodocus, which definitely helps to make this figure quite striking. As you move down, you can see the dark brown that we see in the neck starts to to kind of taper off, and this lighter brown begins to kind of take shape here as you move down. And as you continue to lead down, you can see how that darker brown disappears completely, but we do also pick up a light patterning that is that same tone of color that we saw up in the face. You can also see how the ridges also change again to the same light brown that is the primary body color. On top of that, there is a speckling on this figure, as we have like a reddish brown that begins to kind of speckle everywhere in the brownish areas of the Diplodocus, and this lighter patterning starts to kind of increase in size a little bit as you move down. You do also have this lighter tone of the lower jaw running down along the underside of the neck and throat and everything here. You can see the throat itself is also quite nicely sculpted, as is the texturing of the skin moving down. As you do lead down, you actually have another spot of articulation right here, but it is only a swivel articulation. Obviously, you could swivel it completely, but that's really about the only area of articulation as you move through that spot. The transition from the brown to the lighter tone as well is fairly smooth. That also looks quite nice, and as you can see, the texturing of the skin becomes quite large and quite rough and rugged as you move down. We continue to have more of those osteoderms and stuff leading down through the course of the neck, and obviously some skin wrinkles and stuff down here in the lower part of the neck. So that'll do it for the head and neck area. Then we would obviously move into the body. Currently, it looks a little awkward because we are missing the neck on the figure, but obviously, as far as the articulation goes, you're going to be able to push it up pretty high, and then it's hard to really do this. You can move it down pretty low. This is all standard articulation for the Mattel sauropods. You're able to do this usually with all of them, so nothing new as far as that goes. But as you move into the body, you do have that light brownish tone as the primary body color, and as you can see, that speckling is everywhere. You see that through pretty much the entire body as far as the brownish tones go. I don't know if it runs the entire length of the tail, but as you can see, it's everywhere, moving down into the thighs and everything. The skin texture continues to look really well done as you move through the course of the body. I would actually love to repaint one of these, but I don't know if I have room for another sauropod like this. I love these, I really do, but I'm almost kind of hoping that Mattel maybe takes a little break from the sauropods for a while. But as you can see, we do also have that light tone patterning through the body leading out, but it does stop basically in the hip region, which is pretty typical for Mattel. We can also see the ridges continue to move along the back. We can also see that they do vary in size leading out. Obviously, right there would be the Jurassic Facts app code. So while we're here, if you would like to add that one to your collection, there you go. But as you lead down into the front leg, you've got more osteoderms and stuff, more of that speckling, very impressive leg musculature right there. As you lead down, you can see the elbow, as well as, again, a pretty nice looking foot sculpt leading down there. The nails, unfortunately, do not have any paintwork. I would have really liked to have seen some paint on the nails, especially because the paintwork on this, I would say, is fairly impressive, but there's nice detailing within the nails, just no actual paintwork. We do still have that light tone moving down, running down through the chest and leading into the stomach, but then tapering off as you lead back a little bit further, unfortunately. The detailing on the underside, though, as well, is just as impressive as you see on the upper side of our Diplodocus. Again, if we move both legs away from each other, because you do have forward and back articulation, which if you want to see, again, basically like standard articulation for the legs, kind of close, but obviously you can see it's just like all of the other sauropods. As you lead through the stomach, you can see how nice and vibrant the skin texture looks, skin wrinkles and folds and stuff that we have here. You can see more of that speckling and everything, kind of make out the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin and everything as we push the legs back into place. And again, as you lead up, you've got more skin wrinkles and folds here as you lead up toward the tail. And again, we can turn it around and take a look at the opposing side. Obviously, the only difference that you're really going to see over here would be the positioning of the legs, because they're now closer together compared to a little bit further apart on the other side. The feet are going to look the same. The nails and everything are going to look pretty much the same. Just the positioning and the posing for the legs is a little bit different. Obviously, we've got very nice musculature on the rear legs as well. And again, the knee, the calf muscles shining very nicely. The skin texture looking great the entire way down. Some creasing in the ankle, and again, the toes and everything sculpted down there. So overall, the body is going to look, again, the same over here as it did on the first side. And then the final piece to our Diplodocus puzzle, if my camera would focus on it, does not seem to want to. I don't know why. There we go. We've got the tail, and as we lead out into the tail, you do see more of that kind of reddish-brown speckling here. You also see more of the patterning. So as it kind of appeared as though it was going to stop in the hip region, it does actually pick back up again in the tail. So it does stop basically in the hip, but then does show back up again in the tail, which is nice to see, you know, coloration from head to tail on a Mattel figure. This one, honestly, the only thing missing was nail paint, and that's all they really needed to do to give this a really nice paint job. But obviously paint running along the entire underside would have been nice as well, but I guess we're just being picky at that point. But as you can see, you've got wrinkling and everything leading here through the course of the tail. Again, the ridges kind of taper off very briefly before picking back up again here in the tail, leading out. Again, the detailing looks absolutely excellent as you lead out. You continue to have more of that patterning leading out here through the course of the tail, though you can see it stops right here. This is the last area of that patterning, and then we're basically left with a bare tail, and at this point we don't even have that speckling anymore. But actually, as you lead out, you do get a little extra color out there at the end of the tail as you do transition to a dark brown tip for the tail. There is also a nice curvature here for the tail, like the tail curves pretty nicely the entire way out, which you can see as we bring the tail back through. And you also can obviously see that there is a large size for the tail. It is really quite long, which again, when it comes to a Diplodocus, you would definitely want that. As far as the articulation moving out, you can swivel it right here as well. Again, no other articulation for this spot outside of the ability to swivel. And again, the same thing right here. This piece actually pops off really easily. I've always heard people say you wish you could, you know, disassemble these figures after you assemble them, which I agree with, but you can at least take one part off as far as the Diplodocus goes. So let's go ahead, put everything together, and check it out when it's complete. So our Diplodocus is assembled, and it is gigantic, just as I expected. You know, every Mattel sauropod is huge. There's no doubt about that, but this thing is so big as far as the length goes. It's crazy. It has got to be the longest Mattel figure we've had so far, and I'm almost at the point where I'm just going to glue that last piece of the tail. I showed you how it pops out. Just putting the tail on, it fell off twice. It's driving me nuts that it keeps falling off. So the end of the tail is very loose on mine. I don't know if they're all going to be that way, just something to keep an eye out for, again, if you get one. But obviously the figure is so huge, there's no way I could actually get the entire figure here in screen. It just kind of continues on over there into some of my figures that I have off to the side. So measurements are going to be a little bit tough. I think we'll just see if we can measure it, and maybe I'll just tell you what the measurement is, because I don't know if I can even get the tail in screen at this point. I'll have to take it outside to, you know, show you the full look at the end of the video. So we'll just go ahead and get a length quickly. So it's not a perfect measurement, but I would say it's right around 56 inches or around a 142 centimeters, which is absolutely crazy. As I said, it is definitely one of, if not the longest of the Mattel sauropods, of the Mattel line in general. As far as the height goes, I think we'll have to pull the head up because, oh, now you guys can't see it anymore. This is one of the issues with articulated figures, because the size for this is going to be dependent on where you position the head. I would say this is a fairly natural position. Here you are looking at about 15 3/4 inches, or just a hair under 40 centimeters. So again, very, very impressive in the size department. Also, as far as the articulation goes, we already had taken a look at the neck articulation in a few different areas, but we didn't see it right here. As you can see, the neck articulation can go up and down, but it can also swivel in this spot as well. So I did want to make mention of that. And then as far as the tail goes, we'll see if we can turn this around. Man, this is a tough one. So obviously we can move the tail up, down, and then it does also go left and right a ways. So you've got nice articulation in the tail. It can also swivel. So you've got some nice maneuverability in the tail as well. But this is all pretty much standard articulation when it comes to these sauropods. I don't notice anything new as far as the articulation goes compared to previous releases. So if you do have any of the previous sauropods, the articulation on this is pretty much the same. Maybe there might be an extra joint in the tail just because the tail is so long. I don't really remember how many joints were in the previous sauropod's tails, but those are basically just swivel joints anyway, so they're not very exciting. As far as a size comparison goes, though, as you can see, we have Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being, which everything is very clearly tiny in comparison to this Diplodocus. Like, there is just no comparison at all between this figure and any of the figures that are down under it. I think for the rest of the comparisons, the only real comparisons that make sense to me would be with a few of the other sauropods. So we'll just take this outside and we'll get those comparisons out there. So here we have a comparison next to the Mattel Mamenchisaurus, and I really wanted to bring this one in because I feel like this is probably the longest, or definitely one of the longest, with the Dreadnoughtus being maybe the second as far as longest figures go in the Mattel sauropod line. But I really wanted to bring this one in and compare it with the Diplodocus to show you that, first of all, they are very similar as far as the size goes, like body mass and everything, very, very similar. But obviously the Diplodocus wins when it comes to a length. As far as the tail length goes, it far exceeds the Mamenchisaurus. And then we've got a comparison with the only other sauropod that I feel like we really needed here, and that would be the Dreadnoughtus. I actually thought that I would bring this one in to show you that, of course, the Dreadnoughtus is the largest sauropod that we've seen, besides maybe like the Brachiosaurus. But the Brachiosaurus is a very different looking sauropod, so I don't think that that one would really compare well here. But the Dreadnoughtus is definitely the biggest overall so far when it comes to the sauropods, but shockingly, it's actually a little bit longer than the Diplodocus. But the Dreadnoughtus is definitely the largest of the sauropods so far from Mattel, but shockingly, it's also the longest. I thought for sure that the Diplodocus here would actually beat it in length. I don't know why, I just assumed. It just felt like it was a little bit longer. But in all reality, the Diplodocus is actually a little bit shorter than the Dreadnoughtus. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Legacy Collection Diplodocus is gorgeous, just as I expected it to be. And I would honestly say that this is probably my favorite sauropod to come from Mattel so far. You know, they've really released some great ones so far, like the Dreadnoughtus, the Mamenchisaurus, the Brachiosaurus, the Apatosaurus. Like, they're all great figures, but there's just something that I really like about this Diplodocus. The sculpt is beautiful for sure. I actually really quite like the way it's sculpted. Even the way it kind of leads out into the tail is just very appealing to me. The skin texture looks great. The fine detail looks great. The overall appearance in general looks great to me. Love the ridges moving along the back. The head sculpt looks really nice. And on top of that, the paintwork on this is gorgeous, if you ask me. Of course, you know, painted nails would have been nice, and maybe a little bit more of that lighter tone moving along the underside, but what we have here still looks awesome as far as the paintwork goes, and is so very close to being a fully painted figure. If only the nails were painted, I could have excused the paint going along the underside. The nails just really needed to be painted, in my opinion, and it still would have been just like a fully painted figure to me. But again, otherwise, it still looks great. The color scheme looks very nice. The actual application of the paint looks really nice. It overall is very well done when it comes to the paint. And of course, it's gigantic, very, very long. If you don't have a whole lot of room in your collection, I don't recommend grabbing this unless you're going to keep it in the box. But if you do still have room left in your collection, this is a very high recommendation from me. And as I said, probably my favorite sauropod to come from Mattel so far. And it's got lots of fun articulation, which makes, you know, it even more fun to have some posability with it. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can acquire this on Target. However, the last time I had checked, it was not in stock. It did go up in stock the day of the release, but it very quickly sold out and hasn't shown back up on there quite yet. So just keep that, you know, favorited somewhere, and hopefully it'll come back in stock. I believe you can put in-stock notifications on in Target's app or on their website or something and get a notification when it goes back up. I haven't heard of anybody actually finding it in store yet either so far, so I'm not really sure what's going on as far as that goes, but I wouldn't worry. I'm sure it'll be loaded up on shelves in no time. And again, as I said, definitely pick this one up if you've got room for it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.